Challenge to the findings of the TRC. Faced with a mountain of evidence implicating Buthelezi and apartheid security forces in substantial criminality, the TRC had no qualms about making strong findings against them. These included extensive findings of responsibility for gross human rights violations made against Buthelezi, the IFP, the KZP and the KwaZulu government. The most stinging finding related to the Commission's finding that Buthelezi conspired with P.W. Botha, Magnus Mellon and other senior members of the military establishment to create an unlawful and offensive paramilitary force which committed an unquantifiable number of crimes, including murders, against UDF and ANC supporters in townships such as Kwamakutha, Claremont, Mpumalanga, Sinating and eSikhawini, Volume 3, 220 to 221. The main finding read as follows: the Commission finds that in 1986, the SAF conspired with Inkotha TO provide the latter with a covert, offensive paramilitary unit, or hit squad, TO be deployed illegally against persons and organizations perceived TO be opposed to both the South African government and Inkotha. Volume 5, p. 234. Other findings that remain unaltered include, MZ Khumalo of Inkotha was the link between the hit squad, the SADF and Chief Buthelezi. Brigadier Mate of the KZP was the person who issued false police appointment certificates to Caprivi trainees. Khumalo and Mate were Chief Buthelezi's CO conspirators. Volume 3, p. 221. Buthelezi approached the courts claiming he had been defamed and sought to set aside the findings made against him and the IFP. He initially asked for an order recalling the TRC report and redacting the findings against him. After he abandoned that relief, he sought an order compelling the TRC to publish a statement of errata. Buthelezi and the IFP relied largely on the discredited judgment of Judge Hugo in the Mellon trial and claimed that the Commission was bound by the findings made in that case. It was apparent that Buthelezi and the IFP were primarily concerned with the hit squad findings made against them. However, the Commission contended that the findings were based on overwhelming evidence and were beyond question. It refused to adjust these findings and presented detailed answering papers setting out the evidence. Faced with the humiliation of having such coherent evidence tested in open court, Buthelezi was advised to seek a settlement. The Commission was amenable to adjusting errors in lesser findings, involving the roles of certain gangs, and the reformulation of the description of certain statistical findings, which also applied to the ANC and other parties. The case was settled on this basis. Buthelezi and the IFP then quickly and falsely claimed victory. When former TRC Commissioner Yasmin Suka corrected these false claims by pointing out in the media that the central findings against Buthelezi remained intact and unaltered, Buthelezi sued her for defamation. He again abandoned that claim rather than risk close public scrutiny in court. When City Press editor Mondli Makhanya penned opinion pieces countering false narratives of a non-violence made around Buthelezi's 90th birthday, he was also sued for defamation. Makhanya reminded readers that Buthelezi had blood on his hands. Predictably, Buthelezi also walked away from the case after Makhanya filed his plea and discovery affidavit. History will judge Buthelezi for what he was, an unscrupulous apartheid apparatchik and a profoundly violent man, who would stop at nothing to achieve his political agenda. He threw enormous energy into creating an image of non-violence and moderation, but few South Africans were fooled. As much as he tried to shake off his past, it clung to him like a dark cloud which followed him to his death. Richard Lister and Howard Varney practiced as human rights lawyers in Durban in the 1980s and 1990s with the Legal Resources Centre. Lister went on to be a commissioner on the Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner in 1995.